The NFL just shifted, and most people don't even realize it yet. For months, the conversation around Shedeur Sanders followed the usual draft cycle script: arm talent debates, mechanic breakdowns, can he handle the league questions, standard stuff. Then two things happened. An international partnership reportedly tied to global investors started circulating. And not long after, emerging reports suggested the New York Giants responded with a massive $200 million offer. That number didn't just raise eyebrows. It changed the room. Because this isn't just about a rookie contract anymore. This is about leverage, brand power, market gravity, and whether quarterbacks in today's NFL are valued differently than they were even 5 years ago. If those reports are accurate, this isn't just a contract negotiation. It's a power shift. And whatever decision Shedeur makes next could reshape how teams value quarterbacks across the entire league. Before the $200 million number ever surfaced, before the Giants were reportedly in the mix, before draft boards started lighting up, this shift began somewhere else. It started with name, image, and likeness. When Shedeur Sanders signed a multi-year nil deal with Gatorade at Jackson State, it wasn't just another college athlete endorsement. He became the first student-athlete from an HBCU to sign with the sports beverage giant. That was historic. Not just for him, for exposure, for visibility, for brand expansion beyond traditional pipelines. And that visibility didn't slow down. At Colorado, every game became a national headline. Whether you loved the spotlight or hated it, you couldn't ignore it. He wasn't just playing quarterback. He was operating inside a media ecosystem that amplified everything. That matters, because most quarterbacks enter the NFL with limited leverage. They sign standardized rookie contracts based on draft position. They build their commercial presence after they prove themselves on Sundays. Shedeur flipped that order. By the time the draft cycle fully accelerated, millions already knew his name. His brand wasn't theoretical. It was active. It had traction. And traction creates leverage. Brands care about reach. Investors care about scalability. Teams care about attention in major markets. When all three converge around a young quarterback before he takes an NFL snap, the math changes. Now let's slow this down. This isn't about hype, it's about structural growth. The reported international partnership tied to global investors, if accurate, suggests something deeper than a typical endorsement. It implies strategic alignment, long-term positioning, participation in something larger than a standard marketing campaign. And when global capital evaluates an athlete as a long-term asset, that evaluation isn't based on highlight clips. It's based on projection. Projection of audience growth. Projection of global appeal. Projection of commercial durability. That's where this story diverges from a normal rookie narrative. Because when that level of projection hits the public domain, NFL front offices notice. They calculate. They reassess. And that's when the next domino reportedly fell, with the Giants entering the picture in a very aggressive way. But that wasn't just about football. It was about market gravity. Now let's talk about the number that changed everything. According to emerging reports, the New York Giants responded to Shedeur Sanders, rising market momentum with a massive $200 million offer structure. Let's pause there. $200 million for a player who hasn't taken an NFL snap yet. Now, before we go any further, let's be responsible. These figures are based on reports and industry chatter, not an officially signed and announced contract. But the mere existence of that number in serious conversations tells you how aggressively this situation escalated. Because in today's quarterback economy, elite contracts already cross $250 million. Established superstars are earning $50+ million per year. That's normal. But this is pre-proof leverage. And that's what makes it seismic. Most rookies enter the league with limited negotiating power. They sign slotted deals based on draft position. The team controls the early years. Endorsements follow performance. But if the Giants truly put a structure worth that kind of money on the table, even creatively layered, it signals something bigger. It signals that they weren't just evaluating tape. They were evaluating trajectory. The Giants have been stuck in quarterback instability since the Eli Manning era ended. There have been flashes, experiments, resets, but nothing stable. And New York doesn't tolerate quarterback ambiguity well. It's the biggest sports media market in the country. A quarterback there isn't just a player, he's a franchise face. He's a headline generator. He's a daily storyline. So when the Giants saw reports of Shedeur attracting global commercial interest before entering the league, they reportedly asked a simple question. If his market value is already accelerating, what happens if he wins in New York? Because New York doesn't just amplify quarterbacks, it multiplies them. If Shedeur succeeds in that environment, his brand becomes national, global, cultural. And front offices know that. That's why this offer, if structured the way reports suggest, wasn't just about performance expectations. It was about securing a potential generational asset before the price climbs even higher. But here, where this gets risky, New York builds icons, and it breaks them. Which brings us to the pressure equation. Playing quarterback in New York is not the same as playing quarterback anywhere else. The lights are brighter, the headlines are louder, the patience is shorter. When you win there, you become immortal. When you struggle there, the scrutiny doesn't just follow you, it swallows you. That's the environment Shedeur would be stepping into if the reported offer from the Giants is real. On one hand, it's the ultimate stage. The biggest sports media market in North America, national broadcasts, daily debate shows, endorsement deals multiplying the moment momentum builds. If he succeeds in New York, he doesn't just become a franchise quarterback. He becomes a cultural force. But the other side of that equation is pressure. The Giants haven't found stability at quarterback since Eli Manning. Fans are restless. Ownership is under pressure. Media cycles in New York move fast, and they move harshly. A 2-interception game becomes a week-long debate. A missed read becomes a trending clip. A losing streak becomes a narrative about leadership. Some quarterbacks thrive under that. Others fracture. Now, to be fair, Shedeur has been in the spotlight his entire life. Being Shedeur Sanders' son means media attention wasn't optional. At Colorado, he played under national microscopes. Every throw dissected, every loss magnified. He's not new to scrutiny. But New York scrutiny is different. It's not just about football. It's about identity. When the Giants evaluate him, they're not just asking, can he make the throws? They're asking, can he carry this market? And that's where the reported $200 million structure becomes fascinating. Because that number isn't just compensation. It's expectation. It says, we believe you can be the face of this franchise for the next decade. That's massive. Now, does that mean he accepts it? Not necessarily. There's leverage here. And leverage means choice. Because if one major market franchise is reportedly willing to push numbers that high, others might enter the conversation. Which leads to the bigger ripple effect. This isn't just about one team. It's about how the quarterback market itself might be evolving. Here, what makes this moment dangerous for the rest of the league? If the reports are even partially accurate, if Shedeur Sanders truly leveraged international commercial momentum into a $200 million conversation before playing a single NFL snap. That resets expectations. Because the traditional quarterback pathway has always been predictable. Get drafted, prove it on Sundays, earn the second contract, then cash in. But what we might be witnessing here is a shift in order. Brand first, leverage early, negotiate aggressively, then prove it under a contract structured around projection. That's not normal. And front offices around the NFL are watching closely. Because if this works, if Shedeur signs a massive deal, steps into a major market and performs, it creates a precedent. Future quarterbacks with strong brand presence will point to this moment. Agents will reference it in negotiations. Owners will have to account for off-field market value in addition to on-field production. That changes leverage. And leverage shifts power. Quarterbacks are already the most valuable position in professional sports. They control the cap. They control roster construction. They influence coaching hires. But historically, teams controlled early leverage through rookie contract structures. If players begin entering the league with global brand leverage strong enough to challenge that dynamic, the balance changes. Now we have to stay grounded. Nothing is signed yet. There is no official announcement confirming the exact number or final agreement. But the conversation alone is powerful. Because once a reported figure like $200 million enters the public domain, it shapes expectation, even if the final number shifts. And that's why this isn't just about the Giants. It's about the quarterback market. It's about whether front offices now have to evaluate branding, cultural reach, and global interest as part of contract strategy. And that's a different lens. Because once you admit that quarterbacks are business ecosystems, not just players, you can't go back to evaluating them on tape alone. Which brings us to the final piece of this story, the decision itself. Because if Shedeur says yes, the market shifts immediately. If he says no, the ripple effect might be even bigger. Now we arrive at the real tension. Not the rumor, not the number, not the headlines, the decision. Because this isn't just about whether the New York Giants reportedly offered $200 million. It's about what Shedeur Sanders does next. If he accepts a deal of that magnitude, if he embraces New York, the spotlight, the pressure, the expectations, it signals total confidence. It says he's ready to step into the most intense quarterback environment in the league and bet on himself at the highest possible level. That's bold. But if he hesitates, if he waits, if he listens to other franchises or evaluates roster strength before committing, that's leverage. And leverage is power. Most rookies don't get to choose the environment. They go where they're drafted. They accept the slotted contract. They work inside the system. This situation feels different. Reports suggest the Giants acted aggressively because they didn't want to lose positioning, because they understood that waiting might mean watching another franchise secure the asset. And that's the part that shifts everything. When teams feel urgency before a quarterback has played a snap, that's market distortion. Now let's slow this down. None of this guarantees success. A massive contract doesn't win games. A global brand doesn't complete third and date in December wind. Performance still matters, but the structure of power is shifting. If Shedeur accepts, the Giants instantly redefine their identity. They don't just get a quarterback, they get a headline machine. They get market gravity. They get relevance. If he declines or negotiates differently, the story gets bigger. Because then the narrative becomes, he's choosing his environment. And quarterbacks choosing environments before they've even started is not common in this league. That's why the entire NFL is watching. Owners, GMs, agents, analysts. They're not just evaluating talent. They're evaluating precedent. Because if this moment locks in, it won't just change one franchise. It will change how the next generation of quarterbacks enters the league. And that's where this stops being a rumor. It becomes a reset. Which brings us to the final takeaway. This isn't about hype. It's about hierarchy shifting in real time. For years, the power structure in the NFL was simple. Teams held the leverage early. Rookies signed what they were given. Second contracts were the payday. Brand followed performance. That model created stability and control. But what we're watching now suggests something else. Shedeur Sanders didn't wait to build leverage. He didn't wait for NFL validation. He leveraged college exposure, nil success, and global visibility before entering the league. That's modern economics. Athletes are no longer just employees of franchises. They are independent brands with external revenue streams, global partnerships, and direct audience access. And when that brand becomes strong enough, it changes negotiating power. If reports of a $200 million offer structure are accurate, it's not just because of football tape. It's because Shedeur represents something beyond the field. He represents scale. That scale matters to ownership. In a league built on television ratings, sponsorship dollars, and franchise valuations, a quarterback who commands national attention before week 1 is valuable in ways spreadsheets can't fully quantify. Now, does this diminish Patrick Mahomes? No. Does it rewrite history? No. But it signals a generational shift. Mahomes built his empire through championships. He earned leverage through performance. Shedeur appears to be entering the league with leverage already forming. That's different. And different creates friction. Some executives prefer the traditional ladder. Some fans prefer the prove-it-first mindset. But markets don't wait for tradition to feel comfortable. If the Giants, or any team, truly move this aggressively because they see the long-term value, that means internal calculations have changed. And once internal calculations change, external contracts follow. Now here's the critical question. If Shedeur signs and performs, this moment becomes a blueprint. If he signs and struggles, it becomes cautionary. Either way, the hierarchy has already shifted. Quarterbacks are no longer just evaluated as players. They're evaluated as ecosystems. And ecosystems don't operate under rookie scale limitations. Which brings us to the final thought. Acceleration doesn't ask for permission. And right now, acceleration is what this story is really about. Now let's talk about the part nobody wants to address. Acceleration cuts both ways. If Shedeur Sanders walks into New York with a reported $200 million structure attached to his name, the expectations won't just be high, they'll be historic. That kind of number doesn't buy patience. It buys urgency. It buys scrutiny. It buys headlines every single Sunday. Because once a quarterback enters the league tied to that level of financial projection, the conversation changes instantly. It's no longer, he's developing. It becomes, he was worth it or he was. New York is not forgiving. The city doesn't allow slow burn development arcs. It demands visible growth, visible command, visible leadership immediately. That's pressure. Now, to be fair, Shedeur has handled pressure before. At Colorado, every game was national news. Critics dissected every throw. Supporters amplified every win. He operated inside a constant spotlight. But the NFL spotlight, especially in New York, multiplies that intensity. The difference between college criticism and NFL scrutiny is scale. Miss a read in college, it trends for a day. Miss a read in New York. It becomes a narrative about your future. So while the reported offer signals belief, it also signals weight. And weight matters, because this isn't just about arm talent or leadership traits. It's about mental endurance. Can he handle daily talk radio debates? Can he manage expectations tied to nine-figure projections? Can he block out headlines while still evolving as a professional quarterback? Those are real variables. And here's the irony. The very leverage that created this opportunity could also amplify the pressure that tests it. That doesn't mean he shouldn't take it. It means the decision isn't just financial. It's environmental. If he thrives in New York, he becomes iconic. If he struggles early, the market will be unforgiving. That's the duality. But here's the truth that makes this fascinating. Regardless of the outcome, the quarterback market has already shifted. And once markets shift, they rarely revert back. Which brings us to the final conclusion. This moment isn't about hype. It's about evolution. Now let's talk about the part nobody wants to address. Acceleration cuts both ways. If Shedeur Sanders walks into New York with a reported $200 million structure attached to his name, the expectations won't just be high, they'll be historic. That kind of number doesn't buy patience. It buys urgency. It buys scrutiny. It buys headlines every single Sunday. Because once a quarterback enters the league tied to that level of financial projection, the conversation changes instantly. It's no longer, he's developing. It becomes, he was worth it or he was. New York is not forgiving. The city doesn't allow slow burn development arcs. It demands visible growth, visible command, visible leadership immediately. That's pressure. Now, to be fair, Shedeur has handled pressure before. At Colorado, every game was national news. Critics dissected every throw. Supporters amplified every win. He operated inside a constant spotlight. But the NFL spotlight, especially in New York, multiplies that intensity. The difference between college criticism and NFL scrutiny is scale. Miss a read in college, it trends for a day. Miss a read in New York, it becomes a narrative about your future. So while the reported offer signals belief, it also signals weight. And weight matters, because this isn't just about arm talent or leadership traits. It's about mental endurance. Can he handle daily talk radio debates? Can he manage expectations tied to nine-figure projections? Can he block out headlines while still evolving as a professional quarterback? Those are real variables. And here's the irony. The very leverage that created this opportunity could also amplify the pressure that tests it. That doesn't mean he shouldn't take it. It means the decision isn't just financial. It's environmental. If he thrives in New York, he becomes iconic. If he struggles early, the market will be unforgiving. That's the duality. But here's the truth that makes this fascinating. Regardless of the outcome, the quarterback market has already shifted. And once markets shift, they rarely revert back. Which brings us to the final conclusion. This moment isn't about hype. It's about evolution.